Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
I am Tracy Stuckrath, and welcome to Eating at a Meeting. And I'm so excited to be in Las Vegas for IMEX. And we are in the meeting spaces today just because the show floor starts tomorrow, and this is Smart Monday. But I'm excited to bring to you, I'm going to call you my friend Pete. Right? Yeah. I've known you now, what, a year and a half?
Yeah, Ace. Yeah, we met. Well, yeah, we met last year at the convention.
Yeah. Okay. So here. And Chef Pete is the Director of Culinary Innovation and Training at Canyon Ranch. And Canyon Ranch is Las Vegas and Arizona.
California in the Bay Area, Lannis, Massachusetts, up in the beautiful Berkshire Mountains.
Okay. Awesome. And so you oversee the culinary programs for all 4 destinations, crafting all of the menus, ordering the food and beverage, ordering the ingredients and things like that too.
We've got great chefs that are at each property that really handle that. It's more of the structure between and the relationship between the dietitians on our team and the chefs and linking that together. So we come up with great strategies.
Okay.
We talk about which ingredients that we need to use more of and the balanced nutrition. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into what we do. And that's what I love is it's very purposeful food.
Okay.
And we take a look at about 75% of the population and what they require for nutrition. And that's really where we come up with our standards from. So the chefs get very creative working inside some guidelines just to make sure that we're very nutritious and purposeful. And there's a lot of things that mostly get overlooked, the amount of protein that we consume. And
now, okay, so all right, just because you said that, there's a lot of vegans that say that we don't need that much protein. There's other dietitians that say we do.
I don't know if it's the vegans that say that we don't need that much protein. I think it's more of people asking vegans, where do you get your protein?
Gotcha.
I think that's the biggest question that's asked. And when you look at elephants and hippos, I mean, these animals are massive.
Right.
And they don't eat other animals. So they're getting their protein out of nature.
Okay.
And the same place, nature is very protein rich.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. Yeah. And we just have to think about it because we typically think of proteins as animal-based proteins, but spinach has protein in it.
It does. I mean, but you got to consume. The average person wants at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So for a 100-pound person, they want to have at least close to 90 to 100 grams of protein a day.
Okay.
In the average meal, you can consume and digest about 30 to 40 grams of protein.
Okay.
So you got to have multiple meals with a lot of protein.
Okay. All right, cool. And then I'm interested in the fact that you said you looked at what 75% of the people need to eat. Where does that statistic come from?
That comes through scientific research that our dietitians dive into.
Okay.
So they come up and they do the research. So everything that we do, we like to really be fact and scientific research approved.
Okay. Awesome. One of the things that I read about you is that because we have the farm to table movement, but you do a farm to fuel movement. Can you explain what that means? And I like that.
Yeah. So, well, it's kind of a simple concept because when you take a look at farm to table, it's going from the farm to the table to a plate, but it doesn't necessarily have a strategy. So what we look at is how does our body react to the food that we consume?
Okay.
So it's how do we turn that into energy and build the right nutrition? Again, talking about protein.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that we have that stuff that builds a very nutritious meal together. Okay. So it's because sugar can be organic, right? So if you have farm to table sugar, your body's going to react in a very negative way to it over time. So it's how do we react to it? And everybody has a different reaction.
Okay.
So what's really fun is actually our doctors in Tucson will prescribe the continuous glucose monitors. For the average person, it's not necessarily diabetic related, just so people can see where their blood sugar spikes. And certain foods react to different people.
Right.
So we look for those spikes that hit above 140. Mm-hmm. And then those are the foods that they know that they should avoid.
Ah, Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so group-wise, if a group's coming in there, and I know you said you have a one group that comes in pretty regularly, and
Yeah.
how do you design the menus then when you're doing a group of people like that? I mean, you're not customizing every single meal for every person.
No, we're not doing that. But there's a lot of what we do is we really look at personal dietary needs.
Okay.
So we're taking a look at people that are gluten-free or have celiac, pescatarians. And so we do adapt.
Okay.
We adapted a lot of that. And people come and they have very personalized ways that they like to eat.
Right.
And so we meet them there and we find out what that is. And we primarily try to stick within our food philosophy with that too.
Okay.
So so we do customize as needed, of course, but we look at creating variety, making it attractive, making it delicious. Whether we're serving 1 people or 40 people, that's our same mentality.
Okay. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you too. How do you make it healthy and appealing? Because I just think of if Mikey likes it, right? From Life cereal, right? Yeah. But that was not probably healthy. Life cereal healthy? I don't know. No.
Not so much, but whatever. So I think that the appealing part is what's really emphasizes how people get attracted to eating healthy. Because I think once you say healthy, people think it's a very restrictive mindset.
Right.
They're thinking that, I can't have this, I can't have that. And they think that it's just a departure from what they're used to. But this is kind of like saying like there's an abundance of nutritious food out there.
Right.
And we make it very attractive because it's like the shiny new thing that comes out is like, ooh, I want to go there. I want to go try that restaurant open. I want to go try that. Well, if you do that with food, people are like, ooh, I want that. I want to try that because it looks gorgeous.
Okay. And do you do that with spices and herbs or just the meat, the vegetables themselves?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
There's a lot of seasonings that are very appropriate for healthful food. Okay. And I think that's important. I encourage my chefs all the time, make sure you season your food. There's definitely the people that want something very bland. So we offer something that's very bland, just grilled chicken, for example, or just a seared piece of fish and plain vegetables, steamed vegetables. All that's available to them. But when we compose a dish, we're thinking about flavor, we're thinking about variety.
Okay.
And the best thing to do in a dish, the best fibers are just different colored vegetables. Okay. So including that in there too, and making sure that fiber is there. So so it's fun to create. And I think that it's really exciting to try all these different ingredients that are out there. And it's seasonal. You really got to focus on that because that's when the produce is really at its optimal flavor.
Right.
So using something out of season, it's crazy because the way that tomatoes are harvested these days, they're rock hard green when they come off the vine so that they could travel to their destination. And when they're in that city, then they're put in like a little garage with some ethylene gas, and all of a sudden, poof, this red ripe tomato comes out,
right?
But it's got zero flavor. And then we want our kids to eat this tomato, and they're like, this is gross. So they're for sure. Then the rest of their life, they're comparing the tomatoes to that time that they ate it that was gross. It has no flavor. So that's really key to getting people to enjoy their food.
I remember my grandmother telling me how she used to eat tomatoes just as like an apple.
Yeah.
And she got so sick because she ate so many of them.
Yeah.
Just because.
And it's amazing when you have something that's really naturally ripened, like white peaches, for example, or plums.
Yeah.
When I had my restaurant, I was giving away, I bought some plums, and that was like the best plums ever. And I wanted my guests to enjoy them. So I just gave them away. And then they were coming back the next day saying, can I buy some more? And then the stories came in, like, as soon as they try something like that, I see this with adults all the time, it triggers a memory. And just like you're saying, like, it goes back to grandma's garden. And usually it's something like their family's garden as a kid or their grandma's garden. And it triggers so many emotional memories. Right. And it brings you right back because that was the natural flavor of food. And that's what they got connected to. Mm-hmm. And there's been such a departure in conventional farming since then.
So how do you think chefs are moving this way? And I'm going to preface that with actually, how did you get to this position in your belief in cooking? Because I'm assuming, I'm going to say you went out of culinary school without that philosophy.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I was the executive chef in Las Vegas for big casinos. And we talked about value perception. We talked about quality, price value, all that stuff. And we never really focused on the nutrition side. We had restaurants with rows of fryers. And so it's just all different, appeal to everybody. But my career kind of funneled into working as a private chef, as a chef for a private country club.
Okay.
And the owners wanted to use organic ingredients.
Oh,
right.
Nice.
Right. So for a chef, it's like great because at the time in 2009, it was just everybody considered organic produce as overpriced vegetables.
Right.
Right. They don't know the reasoning behind it. And I knew because we sold 2,000 cheeseburgers a month that these private members were not looking for a healthy menu.
Right.
So I just changed the ingredients. Never changed a word on the menu, just changing ingredients and let them taste it and enjoy that. And that led to the doctor for the owners coming to me and asking if I could prepare certain more nutritious meals. Okay. So after coming out of casinos and feeding thousands of people with like what I described before with their menus, now all of a sudden I'm looking and researching that the average person consumes 153 pounds of sugar a year.
Oh my God.
And that's the average, right? So those things started to intrigue me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was asked by a guy that had lung cancer 3 times to be his private chef.
Wow.
And in 2009, he was just out of his 3rd surgery. So he had surgery, then chemo, and then the cancer kept coming back from one lung to the other.
Oh, wow.
So I started cooking for him 2 weeks after his last surgery in August of 2009, I think it was. And then the doctors had given him a 2% chance to live past 2012.
Wow.
Because the cancer kept coming back so many times. So I cooked for him twice a day for those 3 years, and his cancer never returned. That's the power of food. That's the power of food.
Wow. And he's still living?
He's still living.
Wow.
Yeah. They used to tell me that he was eating the best food in the state of Nevada. So it was enjoyable, and it was not.
Can you cook for me every day?
Yeah, I'm more expensive these days.
I'm sure you are. That's impressive. Wow. And people, because you don't think about what you're eating, you're just eating, right? Yeah. And you're not being purposeful about it. And right. So back to my question before that is like, how do we get other chefs to think about that? Because I'm also looking at meeting menus. I was just at a hotel citing it. And I mean, my lunch is $85 a person before tax and gratuity for a buffet. And pricey, yes. $85 to $92 per. Oh. Yeah, depending on the day. And how do I know that's really nutritious, right? I mean, how do I get that chef to really understand? And I do have to give him credit. This was the JW at Austin. Chef showed up and he's like, here's where I source all my meat from, a program. Yeah. He sent me here's where I get all my seafood from. He was prepared to talk to me because he learned what I talk about. And so he was really prepared. But how do we go to a hotel and say, we want healthier options, especially break stuff? And break stuff is crap.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to really define to yourself what is these more healthful menus.
Right.
And what's your priority.
Okay.
So there's some things too that as a chef you could do, especially on a buffet line, because really you want the ratio of food to be 50% of your plate to be vegetables.
Okay.
25% some kind of carbohydrate.
And vegetables without butter and cheese all over them.
Well, ideally.
Yeah.
But seasoned well, right? Yeah. And then 25% of the plate being protein.
Okay.
So one of the strategies to make sure people get more vegetables is to put those ingredients first.
Okay.
And the buffet line. You put that first, then you put some starch, because the more vegetables you put on your plate, the less room you have for the other things coming down the line.
Right.
So then you get to your starches, your potatoes or your rices, and then you get to your proteins, your lean proteins. Okay. So kind of minimizing the saturated fats of red meat by going towards something that's a little bit more lean and less saturated.
Okay.
So that choice architecture, I think, is really key, because guests aren't necessarily saying, I need to put this much on my plate. But as they go down the line and fill up their plate, it's just kind of working out great that way.
Okay. So this is not anything I prepped you for in advance. So I'm like, how do we think about because you mentioned you weren't focused on price, or you weren't focused on the nutrition of the food. You're focused on selling that buffet. And it's typically, here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday buffet now. How do we change that mentality in a hotel, in the food and beverage director's position? I mean, that's a conversation about bringing in more revenue.
Yeah.
And that food costs, reducing food costs and things. Can we change that conversation?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple ways to attack it. I think if we have educated meeting planners and they make requests, they're the ones spending the money there. The hotel, or the meeting space is going to listen to the guests.
Okay.
The other thing too is I think that we're really listening to demands. And so it's almost always that you'll see a vegan option.
Right.
And that needs to be higher quality, because I think sometimes it's just like, here's some pasta and tomato sauce and it's vegan, right? So that's not what people are really looking for. They want to have their own protein and excitement and vegetables and everything else included, right? Bright, colorful, happy food.
Right.
So I think that's slowly evolving. And I think especially in some areas of the country, California is very fresh food, very fresh food focused.
Right.
Florida's got a lot of fresh seafood going on too. So there's different areas that definitely have slowly evolved into that.
Right.
Then I know California cuisine is very gluten-free as well.
Right.
And so they're accommodating into that too. But personally, I like for Canyon Ranch, for example, we have probably over 500, maybe 600 recipes posted on our blog.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, we want to encourage people to eat healthy.
Oh, I can go pick them up and then take them to a hotel and say, will you make Chef Pete's recipes?
Absolutely. Right. You could take those ideas. It's not, you're not stealing my recipes. We're giving them to you, and it's encouraged. Whether it's a restaurant taking that concept, individuals. So yeah, so making those requests, I think are huge, and giving some examples of defining what's helpful to you is key. So
okay,
it's an individual journey for everybody. But if you know your guests,
right,
then you know what they're asking for. Obviously, a lot of people say I'm pescatarian, I'm vegan. You have to honor all that stuff too.
Right.
But if it's a 3 or 4 day event, we recommend eating seafood twice a week.
Okay.
So you want to have 2 of your menus where maybe 50% of the protein choices are seafood based.
Okay.
And then the other 25% is red meat and chicken and some other things to accommodate everybody else. But having that choice architecture, primarily those ingredients, and having a strategy over a couple of days, and then also getting
strategy around food and beverage. That's huge. Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, when you look at a breakfast menu, it's so easy to serve Danish, croissants, muffins, toast, bagels. Right. It's all really high carbohydrate. And the one thing that we're missing really is the biggest opportunity to pick up more protein in our diet is at breakfast.
Right.
So having more protein options available at breakfast and kind of minimizing the carbohydrates, it's going to be great, because when your attendees at your events are consuming a high carbohydrate breakfast,
right,
by 9 o'clock in the morning, they're nodding off during all these presentations.
Yep.
And then they need to rebound from that. So also having very healthful snacks with a strategy for the breaks and having those available all the time is really key. So it keeps that blood sugar kind of maintained at a steady level. So there's not this up and down with energy. And right after lunch, you see everybody nodding off in the presentations and all too. So that's the reaction to the high glucose spike.
Right. And it's typically, I mean, like if you look at the catering menu, it is completely carbs mostly.
Yeah.
And he just wrote in, no more Danish. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And that's what it is. And if I want to add eggs, or I want to change the eggs, it's another $10 to change the type of eggs that I want. And otherwise it's scrambled eggs. And I love my scrambled eggs with spinach and all kinds of vegetables in them.
Yeah.
You're not getting that at a hotel.
No, well, they could probably offer that as one option, like a casserole.
Yeah, right.
And they bake the eggs more like a giant frittata and have all that stuff included. And you can have one frittata of the day, and it creates some good variety. And then you have your plain eggs for the people that aren't looking for all that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My mom is the person that's not looking for that. My dad all ate it up. Yeah. But it is really, so if you're going to do a vegan breakfast, what are you going to put in that vegan breakfast option for attendees if you're not, because they're not going to do eggs. So what's your suggestion for vegan breakfast options?
So they're not doing chicken eggs, but there's great egg substitutes.
Okay.
Right. So for me, it's just egg.
Oh, yep. I've had that.
Right. So it really mimics, and you could bake with it. You could scramble it. You can make omelets and frittatas. Anything you could do with a chicken egg, you could do with this product.
Yeah.
And there is protein involved with it because it comes from a mung bean.
Okay.
And so that's great bean protein.
Right.
And there's other things too. I mean, you could just have simple smoothie bars, right?
Okay.
And having vegan protein in the smoothies. You have your just egg out there, the scrambled eggs. You do tofu scrambles, and but you really got to season it. You really got to season that so everybody enjoys it. Yeah. And then but you can make almost anything with tofu. Like you could do a chorizo with it too. Super flavorful. And then you can even add that to the just egg and really increase the protein in it.
Now, are you a fan of?
Personally, no.
They're not healthy as far as what I've read.
Yes. And actually, coming very soon, I'm in a documentary talking about that. Vegan Impossible.
Okay.
Yep. So it's a different version of Super Size Me, where the guy eats McDonald's 3 times a week. This guy eats vegan fast food 3 times a week. I'm sorry, 3 times a day. Yeah. And so you really see what his reaction is to that, right? It's very high in saturated fats, very high in sodium. So over time, I think it's great for when like a carnivore goes to a plant-based diet.
Right.
And they're trying to figure out, what do I eat? What do I eat? So those meats are great for that short term.
Right.
And then it's cool to have it occasionally. But not to base your entire diet on that kind of style of food.
Okay.
So yeah, because there's a lot of plant-based ingredients out there. Beans, lentils, a lot of some carbohydrates in that, but a lot of protein as well.
Nancy likes the frittatas at hotels, and it's making sure that they don't put the crust on it to make it gluten-free. The frittata is gluten-free. The quiche is not.
Yeah, correct. Because if they have that crust on the bottom, you're right.
Right. Yeah.
Unless they make a gluten-free one.
True.
Maybe it's cauliflower.
It could be cauliflower. That would be interesting. I mean, and there are some good brands out there of gluten-free flours. I mean, I make my pie crust with King Arthur's pie crust mix.
Yeah. There's Cup for Cup too.
Yep. Cup for Cup.
It's really good.
And I was reading an article. They just changed they're changing some of the ingredients in there to get rid of the top 14 allergens.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, cause I know I was making pie crust one time for my nephew and he doesn't do milk, and I didn't read the back of that label, and their pie crust mix has milk in it, but I think they're taking it out. They have another one that's without it.
Yeah. There's another option too for vegan, because there's a protein powder out that I love. It's Mucuna protein, and it's made from a chocho bean.
Okay. Where did you find a chocho bean?
I didn't find it. Ricky is the guy that found it. It's in Ecuador, and he's got a great source of it. So it's a single ingredient protein.
Wow.
So they have a plain one, and they're coming out with one where they remove the fiber as well. So you could put that into pancakes. I packed as much protein as I could into pancakes to see what the texture and flavor would be. And I mean, it was the highest ratio we could get to, and it still tasted great. It still worked. Wow. Yeah. It wasn't a 400-pound pancake. It was so cool. It was so great. So
awesome.
You can bake with that. So yeah, maybe putting that into some of the baked goods we see, definitely into the muffins, really easy to incorporate that.
Yeah. Does it do well in juices? Like
affinitys, yeah.
Smoothies?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So they have a vanilla flavor out. They have a chocolate flavor.
Okay.
More cacao. And then I just tried one. It was a cinnamon horchata.
Oh.
So that one is great for a standalone flavor.
Okay.
But the other ones I recommend putting into adding more fiber, fruits, vegetables, all that stuff.
Okay, cool. All right. So talking vegan, you were part of launching a vegan restaurant here on the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
That had been kind of hard.
So the restaurant is Truth and Tonic at the Venetian Resort, part of Canyon Ranch, of course. And the restaurant, the location is up on the spa by the pool. So it's off the casino floor.
Okay. And
it was one of those things where we have another restaurant, the Canyon Ranch Cafe, about 3 minutes down the hallway.
Uh-huh.
So very similar, right? It was me writing the menus at the time. It's very my style.
Okay.
And I wanted to really differentiate.
Okay.
So looking at the vegan market, it had grown 300 times in the past couple of years.
Wow.
It was on a hot streak. So being in a location is harder to find.
Mm-hmm.
If you know anything about a vegan, they're very persistent.
Right.
They will go after high and low and find that food.
Right.
So they were the ones hunting us down. They would find us in this location. So it was great because now there's a reason for people to come from other casinos,
right,
which have their own 50 to 100 food options there alone.
Right. Yeah.
And they're going to make it down to us because they know that it's a vegan environment.
Right.
And we have vegan food. So when I changed it, so it was non-vegan previously.
Okay.
We had renovated the restaurants and had this beautiful new look to it.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to get that out of the market more. So just like what I did with the golf course and the organic produce,
uh-huh,
I switched it, but didn't really tell anybody. Well, of course, we told people it was vegan, but I really didn't change much on the menu at all because there were substitutes that I could use for the food that was on there.
Okay.
Especially the Just Egg, because we had a large selection of frittatas that were on the menu.
Right.
And so I just kept it the same and let it read the same and be very similar because I wanted to be approachable by everybody.
Right.
And nobody asks you when you come in if you're vegan or not. It's like, we don't care. It's, everybody comes in and there's a lot of people trying to incorporate at least more plant-based into their diet, whether they not feel fully vegan. But that's really important to them is adding a couple of meals, especially people that are on a business trip.
Right. Oh,
because they've got this wonderful routine at home with their food and their exercise. And then they're on the road and they're out of that environment. So they're looking for something that's more nourishing and not so much of heavy banquet food. So it worked out really well for that purpose.
That's why I go to Whole Foods every time I go on a trip.
Yeah.
And here I haven't gone yet. I typically walk to Whole Foods on the Strip and then take an Uber back with my purchases so that I have stuff in the morning to eat that are healthy because there's typically, I come back craving vegetables to eat them because you don't get them.
Right.
I went to dinner last night. I think there was a little bit of kimchi, cabbage on something on my filet mignon last night. But otherwise, there was no vegetables on the table.
Yeah, that's really key. That's really key to so many things.
Yeah.
And that gut health is just, when you go to a restaurant, you look at a menu, you're not thinking about, what's good for my gut health. But, adding those vegetables in is crazy because that's over 70% of your immune system. And keeping that is just how you extract more nutrients out of the food.
Well, just going back to that guy you cooked for.
Yeah.
Like that proves that. So I was in Austin last week and I found out of chance, I looked for gluten-free and I found this place called The Well. And it is a gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, peanut-free, and refined sugar-free restaurant.
So everything is free but the food.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. And it was delicious. I mean, I had a chickpea rotini pasta with pesto on it. It was not tree nut free, but it was peanut free. And then I had a kale salad. It had too much dressing on it, but it was good. And there's another place in Austin called Picnic, Piknik, which is the exact same thing. But The Well was packed.
Yeah.
It was,
great.
right downtown, and it was super busy, and it's a beautiful ambiance in the restaurant. And so I think people are catching on, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in Austin. I was there about a month ago myself.
Yeah.
And it was a food tour. And we got to dive into, there's local wine out there. And met some farmers that do rejuvenating farming on Willie Nelson's ranch, which was really cool to see. Yeah.
Right. Regenerative agriculture? Really? Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And so there's great farmers markets out there. There's a great community of food out there too.
Great. Yeah.
And I know that's one of the more progressive cities in Texas itself. But yeah, there's a lot of great things happening there. And it's great to see there's more people that are open to the idea of eating more plant-based foods.
Okay. And you guys are opening a place there? Or
Yeah, Canyon Ranch is some land going out there by Lake Travis. So he's building a 600-acre resort out there. So that'll be a very state-of-the-art health and wellness facility near the Canyon Ranch, Tucson. That was one of the originals of the health and wellness resorts out there too. Yeah. So awesome. So we're expanding into the future.
Awesome. That's cool. Okay, so what is one simple, you kind of said it, adding some vegetables in there, but what's a one simple change that people can make in their everyday diets to start living healthier lifestyle? And how can chefs help them do that when we're on trips?
So I think the biggest thing is, like I said before, everybody thinks that healthy food is restrictive. Right. So even if you're going to go do a plant-based diet, you don't have to restrict anything. The good thing is you could add more.
Okay.
So you add more fruits and vegetables to your diet. Just start with that. That'll make a huge difference. And then as you adjust and get used to and start craving those ingredients, then you can start reducing red meat out of your diet, pork, and things that are high in saturated fats. Then the good thing with adding more vegetables to your diet too is that fiber will help remove the carbohydrates that you consume. The sugars and carbohydrates will cling to that fiber. It doesn't get absorbed. And so it helps reduce the amount of absorption with that stuff too. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And I think that's really probably the biggest key is just to add more of that to start. And then maybe you start to go with one plant-based meal a week, or maybe it's 2 a week, or maybe just for lunch, you're kind of doing that. So it's not that it's restrictive at all. In fact, you get to add more things to your diet.
Well, and like maybe vegan January or veganary in January. So we'll pull some of your recipes up for veganary and we could talk about it then too. Sure. How do you get rid of the craving of sugar?
So I was actually lean more on fruit for that. So like oranges, bananas, they're really high in sugar content, but it's a much easier sugar for your body to process.
Okay.
So I think just going for the fruits, the really sweet fruits, especially the ones that are in season, because they're the ones that absorb the most sugars off the plant itself and out of the ground. So I think that really helps with that first. And then that'll get you off the candy and chocolate and everything else. And then even with chocolate, you switch to dark chocolate. And it's got a very low sugar content to it. So
what about dates?
Yeah, dates are definitely, but again, it's fruit sugar, but very sweet. And they're used to sweeten a lot of different ingredients now. Yeah. Even the ice cream can be made with dates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really nice and sweet.
I do a banana ice cream. You freeze it in pieces and then put it in the food processor and just turn it on.
Yeah.
And it's really delicious.
Yeah, it's a simple one.
Yeah, it's very simple. Mm-hmm. So when you're training, I'm thinking about chefs coming in and the chefs that you're recruiting for Canyon Ranch. Are they coming out of culinary school and you're training them, or where are they coming from? And are you having to retrain them and their mindset?
Yeah. So we look for experienced chefs that can run an operation and manage very well and manage large teams. And then we were using this very dated system to calculate the nutrients, and recipes had to go into it. And there was so many steps to it. I mean, even the seasoned people were very frustrated with it. So that was tough to get them through. But we've got something now that's so much simpler and streamlined and easy to use.
Okay.
And so that is helping people adjust to it. But they got to find alternatives to some of the ingredients, right? So it's like just start with the recipe and they see what looks good and tastes good. And then they have to put it through the calculations to see what those nutrients are in the guidelines. They might find that something's really high in fat.
Okay.
And then when they reduce that, maybe it goes over the fiber content. So there's a balance that needs to happen there. So we have to definitely work with new chefs because there's very few places where we could find somebody that has that experience.
Okay.
So that's not very common to find.
Okay.
And if there's some people that come in with a knowledge of nutrition, sometimes it doesn't match our philosophy.
Oh.
So sometimes that's a little tougher to retrain somebody that already has a thought process in mind already.
Right.
Versus taking somebody just like a sponge, just like, okay, where do I start? What do I do?
Yep.
And we've all started there. That's how I started.
Right. Now, there's some chefs that I've met, kind of similar in your situation too, is that because of their family situation or their personal situation, they're a lot more knowledgeable about making changes and accommodating dietary needs. And I just want them all to be that way.
Yeah. Hey, you definitely get some egos out there with chefs, and they're very stubborn and very
eat the way I eat or cook.
Yeah. You can't order a steak well done. No way. Right. But I think definitely because disease is so common these days. Right. 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women are diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. Every 38 seconds, somebody in the United States is dying of a heart attack or heart-related death. Those numbers are crazy. So maybe the chefs aren't necessarily considering that their guests are affected by that.
Right.
But we got families too, right? So it affects us outside of work. And then that really helps change your thought process of building the menu.
Right.
And you go for a loved one's doctor's appointment and they're talking about saturated fats and what condition their heart's in and how they could have a heart attack at any moment. It scares the crap out of you.
Right.
So it's like, whoa, okay. So yeah, all this stuff that I've been using at work, like, God, it's like feeding my guests poison. So helping that is really, I think, helping to influence menus in a different way. And I think that there's, especially with social media, there's been a lot of documentaries that come out on Netflix.
Right.
So there's been a lot of information passed around about what's more of a healthful way to eat.
Okay.
And so I think once people see that, the chefs see that, then it influences their decisions on the menus. Now they're adding, instead of just one vegan item, there might be 2. Or they'll put a note like this could be offered as a vegan option.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that. Even steakhouses are coming up with bigger vegan menus, right? Because they're trying to expand their audience.
Revenue.
It is. And it's the same thing with strictly vegan restaurants. Is they can stick with vegan, but they have to do it in a way that appeals to non-vegans as well.
Yeah.
Because the vegan market itself is very tough to survive on. We see a lot of restaurants out here that are vegan, either closing down or changing their business strategy because they're not appealing to that larger audience.
Right.
And so you need to appeal to everybody. The same approach I took to Truth and Tonic was very successful, but we've got to appeal to everybody, not just a pigeonhole into one little group. The raw vegan market, oh my God, those people that do it is very slim. It's very short term for a lot of people because it's a tough lifestyle. And especially if you're traveling or something to find those ingredients on the road, those menus. Yeah, that's a challenge.
All right. I want to bring it back. 2 more questions.
Okay.
So food allergies. There's the food code was changed in 2022 to recommend, because the food code's just a guideline, that unpackaged food should be labeled if it contains any of the top 9 allergens.
Yeah.
There's only 5 states that are adopted the 2022 food code. I don't know where Arizona and Las Vegas are. But how do we kill?
For sure.
How do we get more people to understand that happens and it's a real thing, and to understand to take those ingredients seriously?
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. So we're pretty much talking like a banquet, right? A buffet line.
Yeah. Or restaurants. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So when it's self-serve or they're getting food that doesn't have, like, even on the menu for sure, we need to highlight, right? So it even now it includes sesame. So anything that includes those allergens has to be called out. And for chefs, what I tell my team is that if somebody asks on a buffet line, if they're going through a buffet, what's safe to eat, is that one of the chefs has to come out of the kitchen that knows those ingredients very well and play the safe, not safe game.
Right.
Right. So this is safe, not safe. Stay away from that. Stay way away from that. And then if that's not an easy way to go, is then make them something in the kitchen that's safe. So, right. Because we can't play these games anymore. Right. And there's a lot of things too, especially with wheat, the way that we're genetically modifying it, that our bodies can't digest it the way that it used to. And so we've got to really pay attention to these people because there's such a high rate. I think it's about 10% of guests now have an actual allergy. And then there's a lot of those people too that say they have an allergy, but it's maybe just an intolerance.
Right.
And then of course, there's just the ones that have a preference.
Right.
But either way, you got to treat them all the same because you never know. And those allergy reactions, you just never know what's going to happen, right? Yeah. Because they could just escalate very quickly. So it doesn't matter what happened on the last reaction.
Right.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know and you don't want to find out.
Well, and one of the stories that came out of Austin, I think 2 years ago now, is a kid had asked for his taco, vegan taco, vegetarian taco. Does it have any peanuts in it? No, it doesn't have any peanuts in it. Asked when he ordered it, asked when he picked it up, asked when he called and said, are you sure there's no peanuts in it? No, there's no peanuts in it. And he died.
Yeah.
And his mom went back and she's like, oh, and they're like, yeah, our secret sauce. Oh, what's in your secret sauce? Peanut butter. And she's like, my son just died because of that. And he's like, well, he was asking about peanuts, not peanut butter. It's like,
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yep. The rule is with my team is that if they don't know, if they can't find out if something is free of the allergy the guest is asking for, we say we don't know. And then we offer an alternative that we know is safe.
Yeah.
So there's always that I can't confirm that, but I can confirm this.
Okay.
So always offering another option is key. And people have to know that if they don't know, if they can't confirm it for sure, say that.
Right.
Right. Because I mean, in that family's case, yeah, I'd be happy to hear, I'm not sure if there's an ingredient there, so just don't order it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So they got to truly know, you got to be confident. We provide our team with a master ingredient list.
Okay.
So it lists out everything, just like you see on like a boxed food or something like that, where it has all the ingredients.
I love that.
But we spell out everything. So if there's a Caesar salad, you tell the lettuce, the croutons, the whole deal. But then we'll tell you the ingredients of the crouton. We'll tell you the ingredients of the dressing. We break it all out. So if our guests want to see that, we can offer that to them on the spot.
Okay. So safety, sustainability, and inclusion. That's really kind of what can you encapsulate that in one sentence, basically, based on what you just said? What does safe, sustainable, and inclusive mean to you? And when you're talking about food and beverage?
Well, from safe is everything being clearly labeled. Okay. If there is any threat of cross contact with food too, there has to be that consideration made. So if it's a buffet, it's just strongly recommend making the guest a dish out of the kitchen in a controlled environment where your eyes are on everything to make sure that it's clean. From an inclusion standpoint, of course, is for offering variety, but then there's the halal. There's other requests that are out there that are very important. So a lot of times it takes community partners to do that. And you have to admit that you're not the best at everything. And there's other people that can do it better. And those are your partners. Those are the people that will enhance your customer experience. So definitely including that. And then, of course, the pescatarians or whatever it is to honor that stuff. Yeah. And even if it's just one meal going out of the kitchen. But of course, the fear on the chef side is that you serve somebody an alternative meal. And then you got 9 other people at the table going, ooh, what's that? Right. So then it's like monkey see, monkey do. And then it's just like, oh, the place is on fire trying to prepare all these extra meals. So, yeah, but we have to be flexible. We have to be accommodating for whatever the request is. And we can't question it. Egos aside, this is a serious matter for people. Food is very personal to them. And when you do that, when you accommodate them, they're loyal as heck. So they will keep coming back to you. I had a family with 2 kids that had a million allergies and a couple of preferences. And the mom just rambled off these allergies. Can't have this and this to the server. And it was overwhelming for the server. Right. I went out and I talked to him and I made notes, got it under control. So I went back to my office and I made a list of the allergens and the alternatives that they would like. And I made that to post in my kitchen. Right. Then I also ran off like another 6 copies and I gave it to the lady. I said, when you're going out to a dining room, I said, it would be great in another restaurant. Hand this to the servers because this really is very helpful. That family came back to see us for 7 days that they were there. And then the grandparents were there for like another 11 days. They came back to see us every day. Wow. Oh, that's revenue. It's huge, right? It's huge. Because when you have a kid with an allergy, there's a network of people that you talk to, right? So then they're like, well, we're going to Las Vegas. Where should we go? Where is safe? And the family used to speak out, go to Canyon Ranch, right? That chef really took care of us. So that's huge, right? That's huge. It's tough. It's scary to work with, especially when it's busy, but it builds that loyalty and then the integrity. Like you feel good doing that for somebody. Yeah. All right. So my question comes in, just tie into that. It's like, so you just gave the case. I'm like, there's loyalty, there's money in that, but there's all the people, well, we're not a nut-free environment or we're not a
gluten-free environment. We can't do that. We can't promise you that.
Well, you know what? That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Right? We're not free. We're not gluten-free and all that stuff. There is a chance. But it's on the chef and on the culinary team to do the best that they can to prevent that from happening.
And it can be done.
Yeah. There's a lot. Most restaurants now, especially for breakfast, have 2 different toasters. One's gluten-free, one's not. We've got 2 pizza ovens in the W Cafe in Tucson. The top one is for gluten-free only. The bottom one is for gluten. So it's becoming, there's strategies to accommodate this stuff. Right. You take your biggest request, which is going to be gluten-free or plant-based, and being able to accommodate that. So you plan ahead because your requests are coming.
Right.
Somebody's coming with that allergy, right? And so with the 9R, what dishes have it? What can you do to leave it off? And then the kitchen's got to remember too that it's the protein that people are reacting to. So if you put cheese on a burger, for example, oh, that's no cheese, and you take that cheese off, that protein is still there. You can't see it, but it's there, right? So we got to be smart about that. You got to be smart about that and start over.
You just can't take the crouton off and you sneakily say, oh, wait, this is a fresh salad. And actually a key on that I've learned too is that make sure that you keep that plate in front of you and make sure they're bringing you a fresh plate so that doesn't happen.
Yes, right. And that food should always come out first.
Yep.
That way there's no mix up and it come out separate because the 2 people order a Caesar salad, one's crouton, one's no crouton.
Yeah.
Right. You don't want to switch that on them.
Exactly. All right. Is there anything you want to say to people about eating healthy to end this?
Well, I think you got to think about, for the meeting planners that are out there, you got to really think about what is best for the guest and how to offer it. And that's that choice architecture that's really key. I think to look at building protein in the morning, I think that's great. Later today, we're going to talk more about sustainability. Mm-hmm. So what I think is great is that if the facility offers everything that you need and you're looking for, it's great location, great price, the right amount of space, that you have brands in your pocket already for sustainable products. We're going to talk about strawfish today. It's sustainable plastics made from a polymer that's extracted from seashells that wash up on the shore in Mexico, right? So that it totally biodegrades. It's not just compostable. Compostable doesn't mean it's going to break down if it's not in the right condition. But this will biodegrade in a plastic bag just by itself. So it disappears and it goes away. So they have cutlery, they have straws. They're coming out with the cold cup too. Mm-hmm. So having that and recommending brands, if the facility doesn't have that for you, then offer that. Say, for our event, can you please get this? Then you have the contact information for the company, and hopefully they give you a fair price because you're constantly recommending that to very large groups and very new facilities. It gives them great marketing and advertising and exposure. So have that there too, but really take a look at what's happening throughout the day and making sure that they have a balance of protein and carbohydrates. And that includes the snacks too. So not just pretzels and popcorn and all that stuff too, but you got some energy bites and some protein bars and some smoothies, for example, where you can use the Macuna protein and bake into some really nice stuff so that you can have a protein muffin and still have that similar experience and similar flavors, but you're building that protein throughout the day for your guests. And that's going to keep their attention span really steady and strong. And they're going to leave the meeting or the convention feeling better than they did when they arrived.
Which is what you want them to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Pete.
You're welcome.
Chef Pete, Chef Gioni. All that. Canyon Ranch. Yeah. PG. Oh, yeah. Okay. So check him out. He's at Canyon Ranch here in Vegas and everywhere else as well. So thanks everybody for tuning in the bottom, and we will both get back to you via LinkedIn or any of the other social media. So thank you for tuning in. I will be here tomorrow as well, all 4 days this week of IMAX. So until then, stay safe and eat well. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.